The desperate call. Ambassador Telex's crystalline form shimmered with stress as the emergency transmission cut through the Grand Conclave session. The holographic displays throughout the massive chamber flickered, then stabilized to show the destruction of yet another Aerith world. Gasps and cries echoed through the assembly of 200 species as the footage revealed massive dark shapes tearing through planetary defenses like they were nothing. Nexus Prime has fallen, announced High Minister Vala, her luminescent tentacles dimming in mourning. The Void Eaters consumed it in less than 7 planetary rotations. That makes 19 worlds lost in the past 60 cycles. The Grand Conclave, comprised of the most advanced civilizations in the known galaxy, fell into panicked murmurs. The Void Eaters had appeared seemingly from nowhere 6 months ago, massive, biomechanical entities that devoured entire planets, converting all matter into more of their kind. Our most advanced weaponry barely slows them, Admiral Krex reported, his exoskeleton clicking nervously as he manipulated the holographic display. They adapt to each new defense within hours. At current projections, they will reach the core worlds within 2 standard months. Telex moved to the center of the chamber, his crystalline body pulsing with determination. Honored representatives, we have exhausted all conventional options. I propose we consider the restricted file. The chamber fell into stunned silence. High Minister Vala's tentacles coiled tightly. You cannot be serious. That would violate our oldest protocol. Our oldest protocol will mean nothing if we're all consumed by the void, Telex countered. We need to consider option Earth. The holographic display shifted to show a blue-green planet, third from an unremarkable yellow star in the spiral arm of a common galaxy. Earth, a world the Conclave had been monitoring for centuries, but had deliberately avoided contacting. The humans are barely a Class II civilization, scoffed Representative Ozzy, her feathered crest rising in indignation. They still fight among themselves over resources and ideologies. They haven't even established permanent colonies beyond their own moon. And yet, Telex continued, our long-range observations have detected anomalies, energy signatures that don't match their public technological level, unusual space-time disturbances in their outer system, and most intriguing. He paused for effect. Certain human communications have referenced concepts they shouldn't possibly know about. Admiral Krex's compound eyes narrowed. You're suggesting they know about us? Impossible. Our stealth protocols are perfect. Perfect against known detection methods, Telex corrected. But humans have consistently shown a troubling pattern throughout their history. They innovate in unexpected ways, especially when threatened. High Minister Vala waved a dismissive tentacle. Even if what you suggest is true, what could these primitives possibly offer against the Void Eaters when our combined civilizations have failed? Telex's crystalline form pulsed with a strange intensity. I studied their history extensively. Humans possess something unique among all species we've encountered. They thrive on conflict. When faced with seemingly impossible challenges, they don't surrender or evolve toward harmony like rational species. They become more dangerous. The chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. I volunteer to make contact, Telex said finally. If I'm wrong, we've lost nothing but time, something already in short supply. After 3 hours of heated debate, the Conclave reluctantly authorized the mission. Telex's diplomatic vessel slipped into faster-than-light travel, heading toward the insignificant blue world that might represent their last desperate hope. Captain Amara Rice stood on the observation deck of orbital platform Sentinel-7, watching Earth rotate serenely below. At 43, with steel-gray streaks in her black hair and 17 years commanding United Earth defense vessels, she had seen plenty, but the sight of home from space still moved her. Her contemplation was interrupted as Commander Chen stepped out of the lift. Captain, long-range sensors detected a spatial distortion entering the system. Signature matches known Type C, likely Aerith Conclave. Reyes nodded, unsurprised. They finally decided to come knocking. Took them long enough. Director Okafor has authorized protocol first contact, Chen continued, handing her a secure tablet. You'll lead the reception team. The visitor appears to be a single diplomatic vessel. Single vessel, Rais mused. Either they're being cautious or they're desperate. Given what's happening in the Vega sector, I'd bet on desperate, Chen replied grimly. Rais straightened her uniform jacket, emblazoned with the insignia of Earth's unified defense forces, a shield with stars behind it, a design that predated official first contact by decades. Inform Lunar Command to prepare the reception facility. And Chen, yes, Captain. Tell the Artemis battle group to maintain position behind Luna, but be ready to move on my signal. Let's not show all our cards at once. 3 hours later, Rais stood in the sterile white reception chamber built into the lunar surface, surrounded by a carefully selected team. Dr. Samuel Okafor, Director of Sinological Affairs, General Diana Wu, representing Earth Defense Command, and Dr. Mikhail Volkov, Humanities leading xenolinguist. The air shimmered as the Aerith transport technology activated, depositing a tall, crystalline being into the sealed chamber. The alien's form caught and refracted light, creating prismatic patterns across the white walls. Greetings, Ambassador, Dr. Okafor stepped forward, speaking in perfect standard galactic. Welcome to Luna, Earth's satellite. I am Director Samuel Okafor, representing the United Earth Government. The crystalline being visibly flinched, its structure momentarily losing coherence before stabilizing. You speak our language, the alien said, its voice resonating like crystal chimes. We do, Okafor confirmed with a slight smile. I am Ambassador Telex of the Aerith Conclave. The being recovered somewhat. But this is impossible. Your species should not have knowledge of standard galactic. Our monitoring indicates you have not been contacted by any spacefaring civilization. Officially, that's correct. Captain Rais stepped forward. Unofficially, we've been aware of galactic civilization for approximately 70 Earth years. We simply chose not to announce ourselves until we were properly prepared. Telex's crystalline form pulsed with what might have been confusion. 70 years. But how? We reversed engineered a crashed scout ship in 1947. General Wu explained matter-of-factly. Roswell, New Mexico. Your stealth technology failed during an electrical storm. We've been listening to your communications ever since. And preparing, added Rais. Now, Ambassador Telex, let's stop pretending. You wouldn't break your precious non-interference protocol unless something terrible was happening. The Void Eaters have reached your core systems, haven't they? The crystalline being actually took a step backward. How could you possibly know about the Void Eaters? Dr. Volkov smiled thinly. We've been monitoring your emergency channels for decades, Ambassador. We know you've lost 19 worlds so far. We know your weapons are ineffective. And we know you've come to ask for our help, which is, frankly, amusing considering the Conclave voted just 30 years ago to quarantine our system as too unpredictably violent for contact. Telex's form dimmed slightly. You've been monitoring us that closely. Knowledge is survival, Rais said simply. Now, should we continue this conversation somewhere more comfortable, where you can explain exactly what you need from us primitive humans? The diplomatic meeting reconvened in the Luna Base conference room, where holographic displays showed the devastation wrought by the Void Eaters across Aerith space. Telex had recovered some composure, but still seemed disconcerted by humanity's unexpected level of awareness and technology. The Void Eaters appeared at the edge of our territory approximately 6 months ago, Telex explained. They consume all matter, organic, inorganic, even energy fields, and convert it into more of themselves. Each world they devour makes them stronger and more numerous. And you've tried conventional weapons? General Wu asked. Everything in our arsenal, Telex confirmed. Energy weapons, antimatter bombs, even targeted singularities. They adapt within hours. Dr. Okafor leaned forward. Ambassador, with all due respect, why come to us? According to your own classification system, Earth is barely a Class 2 civilization. What do you expect us to offer against a threat your Class 5 technologies cannot handle? Telex's crystalline structure pulsed with what might have been embarrassment, the truth, desperation. But also, there are those in the conclave who have studied your species extensively. You humans have a unique approach to warfare and survival. You don't just adapt to threats. You anticipate them in ways no other species does. You prepare for wars that haven't happened yet. Captain Rise exchanged glances with General Wu. You're talking about the Sentinel program. We detected unusual energy signatures and construction activities throughout your system, Telex admitted. We assumed they were mining operations or primitive habitat construction. Were they military? Instead of answering directly, Rise tapped a command into the conference table. The holographic display shifted to show Earth's solar system, with pulsing points of light representing various installations. Humanity united after we discovered we weren't alone, she explained. Not officially. We still maintain the illusion of separate nations for cultural reasons, but defense became a shared priority. We've been building for 70 years, preparing for the day some alien threat would arrive. The display zoomed in on Mars, revealing massive underground complexes and what appeared to be shipyards concealed beneath the planet's surface. The question isn't whether we can help you, Ambassador, General Wu said quietly. The question is why we should. Your conclave has been watching us struggle and grow for centuries without offering assistance. You designated us as too violent for contact. Now that you need our supposed violence, you come asking for aid. Telex's form dimmed again. I understand your reluctance, but the Void Eaters won't stop with conclave worlds. They'll keep consuming until nothing remains, including Earth. Captain Rice studied the alien for a long moment. We'll need to consult with Earth Command. In the meantime, I'm authorized to show you some of our defensive capabilities, so you understand what we might bring to this fight. As they stood to leave, Telex asked, Captain Rice, there's one thing I don't understand. If you knew about us all this time, why didn't you announce yourselves? Why the secrecy? Rice smiled grimly. A species that truly wants peace doesn't build in secret, Ambassador. We built in secret because humanity has learned the hard way. In a universe full of unknown threats, it's better to be the unexpected threat yourself. The hidden arsenal. The massive view screen in Luna Command Center displayed the approach of the Aerith delegation. 3 additional ships had arrived after Earth's provisional government agreed to further discussions. Ambassador Telex stood beside Captain Rice as the alien vessels docked with the lunar facility, his crystalline form still showing signs of discomfort. After 70 years of believing they had successfully hidden from humanity, the revelation of Earth's extensive knowledge about galactic affairs clearly unsettled him. Your security forces will not be armed during the tour, Telex inquired, noting the absence of visible weapons on the human personnel. Captain Rice allowed herself a small smile. Ambassador, if we needed to neutralize your delegation, we wouldn't need conventional weapons to do it. Before Telex could respond, the airlock cycled open, revealing 3 more aliens. A tall, willowy being with luminescent tentacles, a heavily armored insectoid with compound eyes, and a feathered humanoid with an impressive crest. Captain Rice, may I present High Minister Vala, Admiral Krex, and Representative Ozzy. Telex introduced them formally. They have come to evaluate Earth's potential contribution. Welcome to Luna Base, Rice replied with perfect diplomatic courtesy. I'll be escorting you to the Mars Defense Complex where you'll meet with Earth's Defense Council, if you'll follow me to the transport bay. As they walked through the gleaming corridors of the lunar facility, Admiral Krex's compound eyes swept across the human technology with obvious assessment. Your artificial gravity seems quite sophisticated for a Class 2 civilization, he remarked, mandibles clicking. We found the Aerith classification system somewhat limited, Rise replied neutrally. It doesn't account well for species that develop unevenly across different technological domains. The group arrived at what appeared to be a conventional shuttle bay, where a sleek obsidian craft waited. The journey to Mars will take approximately 15 minutes, Rise informed them as they boarded. Representative Ozzy's feathers ruffled in confusion. 15 minutes. But the distance. We've made some advances in propulsion, Rise said simply as the shuttle's doors sealed. There was no sensation of acceleration, yet the view screen showed Luna rapidly receding behind them. The aliens exchanged concerned glances. This vessel is utilizing some form of space-time manipulation, Admiral Krex observed, his exoskeleton tensing. Technology your species should not possess for at least another century. As I said, we develop unevenly, Rise replied. Necessity is quite the motivator. High Minister Vala's tentacles coiled thoughtfully. You believed you needed faster-than-light technology because you feared alien invasion. We knew we weren't alone, Rise corrected. And history has taught us that when technologically disparate cultures meet, the less advanced one rarely fares well. We chose not to take chances. The shuttle slowed as it approached Mars, but instead of heading toward the visible colonies on the surface, it descended toward what appeared to be an unremarkable crater. As they neared, the surface shimmered and dissolved, revealing a massive opening leading underground. Active camouflage, Admiral Krex muttered, clearly impressed despite himself. The shuttle glided into the opening, which sealed seamlessly behind them. They descended through a series of massive chambers, each large enough to hold entire cities. And in those chambers, by the eternal void, gasped Representative Ozzy, those are warships. Hundreds of vessels of varying sizes filled the underground complex, from fighter-sized craft to massive capital ships that rivaled anything in the Aerith fleet. Construction drones swarmed around several unfinished hulls, while uniformed personnel moved with purpose throughout the facility. Welcome to Mars Defense Complex Alpha, Rais said as the shuttle docked at a central platform, one of 17 similar facilities throughout the solar system. 17. Telex's crystalline form flickered with shock. Earth has been preparing for war for 7 decades, Ambassador, Rais replied as they disembarked. Not because we wanted one, but because we judged it inevitable. A delegation of humans waited on the platform. Military officers, government officials, and scientists. At their center stood a tall woman with dark skin and close-cropped silver hair, wearing a uniform adorned with more insignia than the others. Admiral Helena Okafor, Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces. Rais introduced her. Admiral, the Aerith delegation. Admiral Okafor nodded curtly. Welcome to Mars. I understand you're here because you need our help against an enemy you can't defeat. Let's not waste time. Follow me to the Strategic Command Center, and we'll show you what humanity brings to the fight. The Strategic Command Center was a vast chamber dominated by a holographic representation of the Milky Way galaxy. Various sections pulsed with different colors, and a menacing black zone was spreading through what Telex recognized as Aerith-controlled space. We've been tracking the Void Eater advance through your territory, Admiral Okafor explained. Based on their consumption and expansion rates, they'll reach Earth in approximately 7 months if unopposed. You've been able to detect them from this distance? Admiral Krex asked, clearly surprised. We've had monitoring probes in Aerith space for decades, a human scientist replied. Quantum-entangled communication gives us real-time data. High Minister Vala's tentacles rippled with indignation. You placed spy devices in our territory. We did, Admiral Okafor confirmed without apology. And it's fortunate we did, or we wouldn't have had time to prepare specific countermeasures for the Void Eater threat. That silenced the protests. Representative Ozzy's crest flattened. You have countermeasures. Already? We've been analyzing the Void Eaters since their first appearance 6 months ago, explained a human female in a lab coat. Dr. Sophia Chen, Director of Xenobiology and Weapons Development. We believe we've identified weaknesses in their structure. The holographic display shifted to show the interior anatomy of a Void Eater. a complex network of organic and mechanical components surrounding a pulsing core. The Void Eaters aren't a natural species, Dr. Chen continued. They're engineered bioweapons designed specifically to consume and convert matter efficiently. But their design has a fundamental flaw. Their consciousness remains centralized while their bodies expand. Cut off a portion from the central core, and it becomes inert. Admiral Krex clicked his mandibles skeptically. We've tried targeting their central masses. Their adaptive shielding makes it impossible to penetrate deeply enough. Conventional weapons, yes, Admiral Okafor agreed. But we've developed something specifically for this threat. She nodded to a technician, who keyed a command. A section of the floor opened, and a platform rose bearing what appeared to be a simple missile, though its surface rippled with an unnatural iridescence. Phase-shifted quantum disruptors, Dr. Chen explained. They exist partially out of phase with normal spacetime until they penetrate their target, then fully materialize inside. No shield can block something that's not entirely there. The Aerith delegation stared at the weapon in stunned silence. That's theoretically impossible, Telex finally said. The energy requirements alone are substantial, Dr. Chen agreed. But we found efficient solutions. Admiral Okafor gestured, and the holographic display shifted again to show what appeared to be battle formations. We've developed a comprehensive strategy based on your fleet capabilities and our own. A combined force has the best chance of success. Our phase tech to penetrate their defenses. Your faster drives to deliver the weapons platforms. High Minister Vala's tentacles coiled tightly. You seem to have planned this all very thoroughly, Admiral Okafor. Yet there's something you haven't addressed. Why would you help us? We've offered nothing in return. Admiral Okafor's expression hardened. Make no mistake, Minister Vala. We're not doing this for you. The Void Eaters are coming for Earth eventually. Better to fight them in your territory than ours. Representative Ozzy's feathers bristled. So you would use us as a buffer. We would fight alongside you. Admiral Okafor corrected sharply. But let's be clear about motivations. You came to us because you need our help. We're offering it because it serves Earth's interests too. If that arrangement doesn't suit you, you're welcome to leave and face the Void Eaters alone. A tense silence fell over the chamber. Perhaps, Captain Reyes interjected more diplomatically, the delegation would like to see our fleet capabilities before making any decisions. Admiral Krex's compound eyes fixed on Admiral Okafor. Yes, I would very much like to see these ships in action, not just on display. Admiral Okafor smiled thinly. That can be arranged. We're conducting live fire exercises in the asteroid belt tomorrow. You're welcome to observe. As the meeting adjourned, Telex approached Captain Reyes privately. Your admiral seems hostile toward us. Not hostile, Reyes corrected. Practical. Humanity has spent 70 years watching the Aerith conclave from the shadows. We've observed how you treat lesser species. We've seen worlds stripped of resources because they couldn't defend themselves. The conclave may present itself as benevolent, but we know better. And yet you'll help us against the Void Eaters. As the Admiral said, it's in our interest too. Reyes studied the crystalline being thoughtfully. But there's something you should understand about humans, Ambassador Telex. We can be ruthlessly pragmatic, yes. But we also have a peculiar weakness. We hate seeing bullies win, even when the victims aren't particularly likable. The observation deck of the EDS Invictus, Earth's largest battleship, provided a panoramic view of the asteroid belt exercise grounds. The Aerith delegation watched in stunned silence as squadrons of Earth fighters executed maneuvers that should have torn their ships apart. Inertial dampening fields, Admiral Krex murmured. Incredibly sophisticated ones. Phase-shifting technology has applications beyond weapons, Captain Reyes explained. Our ships can partially phase through their own inertia. A massive asteroid drifted into view on the main screen, nearly 5 kilometers across. Admiral Okafor's voice came over the communication system. Target acquired. Weapons free, all batteries. The Invictus shuddered slightly as its main weapons discharged, not bright energy beams as the Aerith delegates expected, but rippling distortions that seemed to bend light around them. When they struck the asteroid, there was no dramatic explosion. Instead, the massive rock simply collapsed, as if something had removed the forces holding its atoms together. Molecular bond disruptors, Captain Rice explained to the speechless aliens. They selectively target and neutralize the forces binding matter together. That technology could destroy entire planets, High Minister Vala said, her voice barely above a whisper. It could, Rice agreed, which is why we developed it in extreme secrecy. The same principles that allow us to unmake matter also let us create our phase-shifted weapons against the Void Eaters. Admiral Krex turned his compound eyes toward Reyes. Your species developed all this. Faster than light travel, phase technology, molecular disruptors, in just 70 years. Fear is an excellent motivator, Admiral, Reyes replied. When we discovered we weren't alone in the universe, we assumed the worst, and we prepared accordingly. And yet you never attacked us, despite clearly having the capability, Telex observed, his crystalline form pulsing thoughtfully. We're not conquerors, Ambassador, Rice said. We're survivors. There's a difference. High Minister Vala's tentacles coiled and uncoiled anxiously. The Conclave was wrong about your species. We classified you as primitives, but in truth, you simply didn't recognize our type of advancement. Rice finished for her. You measure civilization by harmony, stability, and the elimination of conflict. We measure it by our capacity to face threats and overcome them. Representative Ozzy, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. If we survive the Void Eaters, what then? Will Earth join the Conclave? Captain Rice smiled faintly. That's a discussion for after the war, Representative. One thing at a time. On the main screen, Earth fighters continued their exercises, moving in formations that seemed to defy physics itself. Watching them, the Aerith delegation began to understand why humans might indeed be their best hope against the unstoppable Void Eaters, and why, perhaps, they should be grateful that humanity had chosen to help rather than conquer. Humanity's answer. The combined Earth-Aerith fleet materialized at the edge of the Proxima Centauri system, the designated battleground chosen for its strategic position and minimal civilian presence. 300 Aerith vessels of various classes formed a defensive perimeter, while Earth's contribution, 70 specialized warships, maintained a tight formation at the center. On the bridge of the EDS Invictus, Captain Rice studied the tactical display with Admiral Okafor and the Aerith command representatives. The holographic projection showed the approaching Void Eater swarm, over 500 organic mechanical monstrosities ranging from fighter size to massive planet-killer behemoths. They've detected us, Admiral Krex announced, his mandibles clicking nervously, changing course to intercept. Admiral Okafor nodded grimly. As expected, Captain Rice, deploy phase squadrons as planned. Admiral Krex, your long-range vessels should begin suppression fire to mask our special units' approach. High Minister Vala's tentacles writhed anxiously. There are more of them than our intelligence suggested. Perhaps we should reconsider. We're committed. Okafor cut her off. Phase squadrons, launch now. From the Earth vessels, hundreds of smaller craft emerged, sleek, obsidian fighters that seemed to shimmer in and out of visibility as they accelerated toward the oncoming Void Eater swarm. Phase Cloak engaged on all special units, reported a human technician. They're invisible to conventional sensors. The Aerith vessels opened fire, massive energy weapons lancing across space toward the approaching enemy. As expected, the Void Eaters barely slowed, their adaptive shielding absorbing or deflecting most of the energy. Their shields are already adapting, Admiral Krex warned. Effectiveness of our weapons dropping by 3% with each volley. Captain Rice watched the tactical display intently. The phase squadrons were nearly in position, undetected by the Void Eaters, who were focusing on the visible threat of the Aerith ships. Now, Rais ordered quietly. The phase fighters deactivated their cloaks simultaneously, appearing without warning in the midst of the Void Eater formation. Before the alien entities could react, the human vessels released their specialized weapons, phase-shifted quantum disruptors that penetrated deep into the Void Eaters' bodies before fully materializing. The effect was immediate and devastating. Dozens of the smaller Void Eaters simply collapsed from within, their central cores shredded by weapons that had bypassed their shields entirely. Even the larger entities showed signs of damage, portions of their massive bodies going inert as the human weapons severed connections to their control cores. First strike successful, Rais reported. 30% of enemy smaller units neutralized. Significant damage to 14 capital-class entities. A ripple of something like hope passed through the Aerith representatives on the bridge. "They're adapting," warned Dr. Chen over the communication channel. "Energy fluctuations suggest they're attempting to phase-shift their own shields." As expected, Admiral Okafor replied calmly. "Implement countermeasures. Phase 2. The Earth fighters regrouped and changed tactics, now firing what appeared to be conventional missiles. The Void Eaters, having adapted to the phase technology, confidently allowed these seemingly lesser weapons to impact their shields, only to discover too late that the missiles contained quantum entanglement disruptors that temporarily collapsed their adaptive defense systems. In the brief window of vulnerability, the Aerith fleet's energy weapons suddenly found their targets, tearing through exposed Void Eater tissue and machinery. "Remarkable," breathed Telex, his crystalline form glowing brightly with excitement. "Your species anticipated not just their initial defenses, but their adaptations as well." "We're good at predicting how predators think," Rais replied, her attention still fixed on the battle. "Because deep down, we understand what it means to be predators ourselves." Despite the initial success, the battle quickly intensified. The Void Eaters, true to their nature, adapted again, some sacrificing themselves to absorb the disruptor effects, while others launched counterattacks. Several Aerith vessels disappeared in blinding explosions, and even 2 Earth ships suffered critical damage. "They're targeting our command vessels now," Admiral Krex reported as the tactical display updated. "They've identified the threat pattern." Admiral Okafor's expression remained steady. "Time for Phase 3. Captain Rais, you have operational command of the Special Task Force." Rais nodded sharply. "Thanatos Squadron, prepare for deployment. All cover units in position." From the Invictus's main hangar bay, 5 sleek black vessels emerged, unlike anything the Aerith delegates had seen before. They seemed to bend light around them, not through phase technology, but something else entirely. "What are those?" High Minister Vala asked, her tentacles coiling in confusion. "Our answer to the Void Eater's adaptive capabilities," Rais explained as she prepared to transfer to one of the vessels. "They're quantum state vessels. They exist in multiple potential states simultaneously until observed. The Void Eaters can't adapt to what they can't definitively perceive." Before departing the bridge, Rais turned to Ambassador Telex. "The fleet is yours to command alongside Admiral Okafor. Keep the Void Eaters occupied while we deliver the final package." "The final package?" Telex questioned. Rais's expression was grim. "Sometimes to defeat a consumer, you have to give it something it can't digest." Aboard the lead Thanatos vessel, Rais strapped into the command chair as her elite crew prepared for what might well be a suicide mission. The ship's engines hummed with power as they accelerated toward the heart of the Void Eater formation, where the largest entity, nearly the size of Earth's moon, coordinated the swarm's activities. "Quantum state fluctuation at maximum," reported Lieutenant Chen, Dr. Chen's younger brother and a brilliant physicist in his own right. "We're registering as 17 different potential objects to their sensors." "Good," Rais replied. "Status of the package?" "Stable. Containment fields at 100%. The view screen showed chaos as the combined Earth-Aerith fleet engaged the Void Eaters in the distance. Energy weapons, phase disruptors, and more conventional explosives created a devastating light show against the backdrop of space. The diversion was working. Most of the Void Eaters were focused on the main fleet, rather than the 5 small vessels slipping toward their command entity. "They've spotted us," warned the tactical officer. 3 Hunter-class entities peeling off to intercept. "Evasive pattern Delta," Rise ordered. "Deploy chaff drones." The ship lurched as it executed a maneuver that would have liquefied the crew without their specialized inertial dampening systems. Behind them, dozens of small drones scattered in all directions, each one projecting the quantum signature of a Thanatos vessel. 2 of the pursuing Void Eaters veered off to chase the decoys, but the third, larger and apparently more intelligent, stayed on their tail. "Persistent one," Rise muttered. "Offensive measures authorized." The Thanatos vessel's rear weapons ports opened, discharging not energy weapons, but what appeared to be clouds of metallic dust. As the pursuing Void Eater plowed through the cloud, the particles activated, billions of microscopic machines that attached themselves to the entity's surface and began boring inward. "Nanite swarm deployed successfully," reported the weapons officer. "Penetration in progress." On the tactical display, they watched as portions of the pursuing Void Eater began to go dark, the nanites disrupting its internal systems faster than it could adapt. Within minutes, the massive entity had slowed to a drift, effectively neutralized. 2 minutes to insertion point, Lieutenant Chen announced. The view screen zoomed in on their target, an organic-looking aperture on the surface of the command entity, periodically opening to absorb matter that smaller Void Eaters brought to it. "That's its feeding orifice," Rice confirmed. "Perfect delivery point for our package." As they approached, however, the massive Void Eater seemed to sense the threat. The aperture closed, and the entity's surface began to ripple with defensive energy. "It's generating some kind of repulsion field," Chen reported urgently. "We can't get close enough for delivery." Ray studied the tactical display for a moment, then came to a decision.